Welcome to this lecture on human physiology. Today, we're going to explore a fundamental concept called muscle summation and tetanus. Have you ever wondered how your body knows the difference between gently picking up a fragile egg and forcefully lifting a heavy bucket of water? The secret lies in how our nervous system communicates with our muscles. By the end of this video, you will understand the exact mechanisms that allow us to perform smooth, sustained, and powerful movements every single day. To begin, let us build an intuitive understanding of how muscle summation works. Imagine you are trying to lift a heavy bucket of water. If your brain only sent a single quick electrical signal to your arm muscles, your arm would just jerk once and immediately drop the bucket. To actually lift and hold it, your brain must send a continuous, rapid-fire stream of signals. Think of it like pushing a child on a swing. If you push them once and wait for them to completely stop before pushing again, they will never go very high. But if you push them and then push them again while they are still moving forward, the pushes add up and they swing much higher. In our muscles, this adding up of signals is called summation. Now that we have a conceptual picture, let us look at the formal physiological definitions. In human physiology, a single electrical stimulus from a motor neuron causes a brief, isolated muscle contraction. This event is known as a muscle twitch. However, a single twitch is rarely useful for real-world tasks. Because it ends so quickly, it produces very little force. If our bodies only relied on single twitches, we would not be able to lift objects, maintain our posture, or perform any continuous physical work. Since a single twitch is not enough, this is where wave summation comes in. Wave summation occurs when a second electrical stimulus arrives at the muscle fiber before it has completely relaxed from the first stimulus. Because the muscle is already partially contracted and calcium ions are still abundantly present in the muscle cell fluid, the second contraction builds directly upon the first. This produces a much stronger total force. Just like pushing the swing while it is still moving forward, the muscle tension adds up. Building on the idea of wave summation, what happens if the signals keep coming faster and faster? If the frequency of these incoming stimuli increases even more, the muscle reaches a sustained state called tetanus. There are two types of tetanus. Unfused tetanus happens when the muscle partially relaxes between rapid stimuli, creating a quivering but strong contraction. You might have felt this when your muscles shake during a strenuous workout. On the other hand, fused tetanus occurs when the stimulation frequency is so incredibly high that the muscle has absolutely zero time to relax. This results in a perfectly smooth, sustained, and maximal contraction, which is essential for heavy lifting. Understanding these states of contraction is absolutely critical because it explains exactly how our bodies regulate force in real life. Without this brilliant mechanism, every muscle movement would be a weak, uncontrollable spasm, making it impossible to stand, walk, or hold a cup of coffee. By simply varying the frequency of action potentials, the body smoothly transitions from delicate tasks to forceful ones. In clinical settings, this system can be hijacked. For example, the disease known as tetanus, caused by a bacterial toxin, forces muscles into a state of permanent, painful fused tetanus. Furthermore, sports scientists and physical therapists use these exact principles to design electrical muscle stimulation therapies, helping paralyzed or injured patients regain muscle tone and strength. Now that we understand the physiological concepts, let us look at the mathematical representation of stimulation frequency. This formula shows us exactly how the nervous system controls the timing of signals. The variable f represents the frequency of the electrical stimuli sent by the nervous system, measured in hertz, which simply means signals per second. The symbol delta t represents the time interval between two consecutive stimuli, measured in seconds. This simple mathematical relationship tells us that the frequency of stimulation is inversely proportional to the time delay between signals. Physically, if the time interval decreases, meaning the signals are firing much closer together, the frequency increases dramatically. When this frequency becomes high enough, the muscle does not have time to relax, and wave summation begins. This brings us to the specific condition required for wave summation to actually happen. Here, we have a mathematical inequality. The symbol delta t is the time interval between incoming nerve signals, just as we saw before. The variable t0 is the total duration of a single muscle twitch, from the start of contraction to complete relaxation. This inequality states that for wave summation to happen, the next signal must arrive before the current twitch has finished. If the interval is greater than the twitch duration, the muscle fully relaxes, and you just get separate, weak twitches. But as the interval gets smaller and smaller, the muscle enters unfused tetanus, building up more tension. Eventually, when the interval is extremely small, the muscle locks into fused tetanus. Let us apply these formulas to a concrete laboratory example. We are given a skeletal muscle fiber where a single twitch takes exactly 0.05 seconds to complete. The nervous system sends a train of action potentials at a frequency of 30 hertz. We need to determine if wave summation will occur. First, we use our frequency formula to find the exact time interval between the incoming signals. We substitute the given frequency of 30 hertz into the equation, dividing 1 by 30. This calculation shows that a new electrical signal arrives at the muscle approximately every 0.033 seconds. Finally, we compare this to the twitch duration. Since 0.033 is strictly less than 0.05, the muscle does not have enough time to fully relax. Therefore, the second contraction builds upon the first, and wave summation successfully occurs. Now that we have seen how summation starts, let us calculate the massive force generated when it reaches its peak. This formula captures how rapid stimulation scales up the force output of a muscle. The variable Tm represents the total maximum tension generated during fused tetanus, measured in newtons. The symbol m is the multiplier, which represents how many times stronger tetanus is compared to a single twitch. Finally, the variable T0 is the baseline tension produced by one isolated single twitch. Conceptually, because the stimuli arrive so rapidly, calcium ions flood the muscle cell and never get pumped back out, allowing contractile proteins to form maximum attachments. If the baseline twitch tension increases, or if the physiological multiplier is higher, the total sustained force increases proportionally. Let us see this force multiplication in action with another example. During an experiment, a single muscle twitch generates a peak tension of 20 newtons. When stimulated at a very high frequency of 100 hertz, it enters complete fused tetanus. We're told that for this specific muscle, fused tetanus produces a maximum tension exactly 4 times greater than a single twitch. We want to find the total maximum tension. We start with our tension formula and plug in the known values. The multiplier m is replaced with 4, and the single twitch tension is replaced with 20 newtons. Multiplying these together gives us 80 newtons. This demonstrates exactly why our nervous system uses high-frequency stimulation for heavy lifting. This 80 newtons of sustained force can now be used to move bones and interact powerfully with the world. To visualize everything we have discussed, let us examine this graph of muscle tension over time. On the horizontal axis, we have time in seconds, with red arrows indicating the exact moments electrical stimuli arrive. The vertical axis represents the muscle tension generated. First, on the far left, you see a single twitch, a brief rise and fall in tension from one isolated stimulus. Moving to the right, as the stimuli arrive closer together, we see wave summation, where each contraction builds on the previous one before it can relax. Further right, the rapid firing leads to unfused tetanus, shown by the high but quivering jagged line. Finally, on the far right, the stimuli are so dense that the muscle locks into fused tetanus, represented by the smooth, flat plateau at maximum tension. This perfectly illustrates how frequency dictates force. We have covered a lot of ground today, so let us summarize the most important ideas. First, muscle summation is the brilliant physiological mechanism that allows us to generate smooth, sustained, and variable force by adding individual twitches together. Second, by firing electrical signals at faster and faster frequencies, the nervous system prevents the muscle from relaxing, eventually locking it into a state of maximum continuous contraction known as fused tetanus. We also learned that mathematically, this only happens when the time interval between signals is strictly less than the duration of a single twitch. Understanding this concept is incredibly rewarding, as it bridges the gap between a simple, microscopic nerve impulse and the complex, powerful movements of the entire human body. Great job following along with these fundamental principles of physiology.